Okay, let's start. Yep. Yes, the microphone works, so I need to speak softer because otherwise it will be very, very loud. I have a very loud voice. So my name is Eddie Hartog. I'm head of unit for Smart Mobility and Living in DG Connect, and I've been asked to moderate this session. I'm actually delighted with that because you can see from Smart Mobility and Living that we actually have tried to combine all of those elements together. And I'm also very proud to say that I'm the only smart unit in the European Commission, as far as I know. Anyway, apart from that, we have a fantastic panel today with a very broad range of topics. They will all do a 5-minute introduction of what their specific angle to this topic is. And then we'll do a bit of an interactive session between them, but also with you. And the idea is really to know after this session, what do we do next? What do we do next in the policy making, but also more importantly, what do we do next in the new research programs that will come on stream to actually bring this sector integration forward in the next financial perspective. Now, the first speaker is Mariska Zwijstra. She will be looking at the angle from the charging station. So, Mariska, floor is yours.
Yes. I don't know if it's working. No. Hello? Yeah. All right, I'm Mariska Zwijstra. I'm working for Ayla Tanel, which is a knowledge institute based in the Netherlands specifically for smart charging of electric vehicles. We were not always dedicated to smart charging. When we started 10 years ago, we were focusing on getting electric vehicles on the road and getting them connected to the grid. So we were actually placing chargers in the Netherlands to break the chicken and egg dilemma of not having any chargers, causing not many people to trust in electric vehicles. The further 5 years we spent on developing open protocols to get all those cars to be charged in the same way, to be in control of how the charger communicates to the car and how the charge point operator can communicate to the charger. And now we are 10 years in existence and we are working on a one step further, the smart charging, because now we know that with the big evolution in electric vehicles, we will run into a big challenge of charging them all in the available time and available capacity on the grid. So we're looking into extra communication levels, extra information that we need to decide what car to charge when, at which power, and how to get feedback on the charging sessions without hindering all the drivers with questions or applications to ask them what their private life looks like and what their driver desires looks like. So we're doing research on that and also on the technology part. So we've got our own testing facilities where we test all possible chargers that are in Europe, in the country. And vehicle to grid is one of our newest areas, which I will probably also be speaking about later in the discussion with the panel. So that's Ayla Tanel and my story.
Excellent. That's a good start of a company that is actually trying to fill that gap that is actually emerging between the traditional sectors. Maybe I can then turn to someone who's a little bit more representative of the traditional sector, Peter Hermans.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. My name is Peter Hermans, Chief Technology Officer of Stedin. Stedin is a Dutch DSO, the third largest Dutch DSO in the Netherlands. We have about 2.5 million customers, and we serve them with electricity and gas. And I'm active in the European space, in the TSO, DSO task force on active system management research reports, and also the recent years on flexibility, expert group 3, task force flexibility, research reports in that. I think it's very good that we meet today on the sector of mobility, EV, and smart grids, because I think we need each other. If I look to what in the Netherlands the government wrote in their climate plans, they said the target is 2.8 million electrical vehicles by the end of by 2030. And when we look to what that means for our grid, and basically if we let the market go as it goes now, then we probably would have to double the capacity of our low voltage grid. And then we have a problem because we don't have the people, we don't have the money, and we don't have the time. Now the good thing is, if we enter into the arena of smart charging, where the cooperation between the electric EV mobility sector and the smart grid sector is coming together, we can manage the problem And then also we do it in an affordable way, because at the end, every money we spend at this DSO, it's paid by the end customer. So we feel also a responsibility that we keep the cost low and that we enter into a grid which is sustainable, reliable, and affordable. And I think we will discuss that in the panel more. In the Netherlands, we have currently the debate also on the implementation of the electricity directive from the clean energy package on data sharing and data access. Because so far, regulation is only written on what suppliers and DSOs and BRPs, etc., should do, and based out of those roles, then the element of data sharing, in which we have access to what data is coming forth. Actually, we have the discussion now the other way around. Let's talk about the generic concept of sharing data and having access to data, in which also the GDPR compliance is addressed, and then it's independent of which roles are out there, because it's virtually impossible to write down in the law which roles in the future will need which data. If we do that, then we hinder innovation. And that is the debate we are going on in the Netherlands. And the rest is for the debate.
Excellent, Peter. Thank you very much. And that brings us then to a company that actually brings all of those sectors together in its various formats. So, Herman, could you explain a little bit how that works with these traditional sectors? And in what language do you actually communicate? Because they're so different.
Okay, so good morning. My name is Herrera. I work in Atos. Atos is a digital company. I'm responsible of the transport sector on research activities, but basically, coming back to the panel discussion, the objective is that during the latest years, digitalization has erupted in both sectors, in both domains, and the data is in the middle of everywhere. So one of the things that we have been working is to design different digital platforms or data platforms and solutions together with our customers in order to help them how to create data insights based on and to create them business value for them. So the point there is that we are trying to help the different companies not to try to work alone in data silos. In this new digital or data economy, they need to collaborate or to be interoperable with other type of digital business solutions or digital platforms. So, as we need to help them to work not to work in data silos, we are working in the specifying different type of open APIs, open or microservices ecosystems, in order to help them to interact or to communicate with each other. This is a kind of example in transport, for instance, is in mobility as a service concept. They have this good news from European perspective, because this has been originated and created from Finland, but now it's tried across the world. And in this case, the mobility as a service, what they have been trying is to connect the different transport operator services in one single ecosystem or platform in order to provide to the customer different type of options. Or you can book a transport service, and the mobility as a service platform decides which is the best mode or the best route for you and the best transport mode to move from one point to another. So not only that, the main focus is to work together with this ecosystem, with different industries, in providing open specifications to enable this data interaction or data interoperability between them, and not only working together as well with the regulation. We have seen some examples right now in the financial services, like the PSD2 directive, that they are forcing the different financial institutions to offer an open API to get access to the data assets in the financial institutions. But at the same time, we have some other regulations that are helping the citizens to protect themselves, to manage the data protection or the data privacy of this data. So these are the main challenges that we are foreseeing that in the current digital ecosystem, is that how to push the open API specifications together with the industry, but as well with public policies.
Excellent. Thank you, Herman. And last, in the first set of presentations, we actually come to why all of this is needed, because we need this for logistics. We don't use energy or drive around just to amuse ourselves, but we do this for a purpose. And how does that fit into your business model, Nicolina?
Hello. So I'm operating a digital logistics platform that is like an Airbnb for logistics, and that is delivering services like logistics as a service. What we are doing today is that we are connecting logistics service provider with accessing capacity to clients, and we are building in parallel a network of networks in order to allow the different the different clients to access this network through one digital access point, and to be able to mutualize their flows into the warehouses, and also to pull their transport together and to scale the economies on larger level. So if I have to sum up, it's what we are doing.
Yeah, very good, thank you. Just as an opening question to all of you, and then maybe we can get into also some interaction with you. Now we can have a long philosophical debate about integration of sectors, and and that will be the same whether we're sitting in Italy or whether we're sitting in Germany or in the United States or Saudi Arabia. That's a sort of philosophical discussion. What I'm really interested in today is, what should the European Union do about all of this? What is the key function that you see for the European Union to allow you to do the business as you would like to do that? I give you 2 seconds to think about it, because it's a very deep question. But what is it to your business? Why do you actually spend the money to come to a European Union discussion on this?
Well, maybe
yeah, Peter, you start.
What we expect from the Commission, of course, they write smart programs for that. But
what is a smart program?
Yeah, well, we can have a discussion on that. But smart is not prescribing, because I think if you prescribe, then you might kill innovation. But enable things. So take away barriers and bring people together or sectors together with traditionally are not having a communication with themselves. Then secondly, I think from the energy transition perspective, the climate objectives we have is the case for change. And I think you could help us in emphasizing that much and more, that basing on this case for change, it's not a voluntary basis that we start to work together, but it is just a must.
Herman?
No, I agree with you, because I think that at the end, sometimes we see that the rate of change of technology is probably faster than the rate of change of the policies. it goes so fast. So I agree with him that maybe the policies should be oriented to try how to lower the entry barriers to different type of actors into the energy or transport value chain in the new operational models. And I think that this is the key in order to boost the digital innovation in the.
And what are these barriers? Are they technological? Are they regulatory? Are they financial? What are those lowering the barriers that you mentioned?
I think that they are not technological ones. I think they are more, in this case, trust between the people, and not only the people, the companies, how to enable the entrance of new companies or new operational or business models inside the market. And because as well, at the same time, we have consumers that are maybe pushing for another type of business models or another type of behaviors that compare with the traditional ones. So the barrier is how to enable or how to fit as much fast as possible these new business models or digital services inside the current regulation or frameworks. So the barriers is try to reduce the entry barriers from not regulatory but from business or industry point of view.
But for you, Nicolina, there are no barriers. I mean, that's precisely why you find a business model, no? It's because of the barriers that you can actually bring things together, no?
No, I could not say that. Actually, there are a lot of barriers, and the state of mind is the first one, because the market is disrupted from bottom to up and not from up to bottom, and this should be changed, because when you disrupt it and when you make the digitalization from bottom to up, you are not encompassing all the problem, and so you could have an incoherent decisions and also an incoherent business model that is not sustainable. So I think that the EU Commission could help this change of mind and bring more volumes and make the digitalization speeding up a little bit. And this is what I. And on the other hand, I think that you could also intervene by helping standardization and harmonization on the way that the information is exchanged. Because today, when you are working with a small startup like we are, so the cleaning of data, the collection of data is crucial, and it's taking a lot of time, and this impacts our competitivity towards.
Mariska, for you, what would be your preference, to clean up the barriers between the charging companies, or between the charging company and the ecosystem of car manufacturers and road operators and energy suppliers, etc.?
Well, actually, I don't think we should make a choice, because we need all the information. We need the information from the cars to the chargers, but also we need all charge point operators to communicate in the same way to the charge points, so that everything works together, so that no matter what company decides to enter the charge point operation market, they can all do it, because it's an open protocol and it's open for everybody. So I think Europe should take a stand in that, and through a firm decision say, well, this is the protocol that you have to comply to. You're open to put any extras to it, but then you have to share it with the whole community, so that it's always open. We're not dependent on any type of company like you would be with Microsoft or whatever. We need open source communication, and that is both from the cars that are they all need to make the same decision, and also for the charge point operators. And for the cars, I think that is the biggest challenge. What you see now is that every car has their own idea of how to register certain aspects of the battery status or driver behavior. We have all the different privacy issues among the different countries, and that is a big step to make.
But that would require the European Union to legislate, to give a direction. But then you immediately get, I'm sure there are a lot of people in the room who said, no, please don't do that, because it's not up to a government to make a technological choice. You know, how does that relate to innovation?
Well, that's why I mentioned the open source, because I think if you start programs in co-creation with several European parties from several branches, and you tell them to create open source solutions for the charging infrastructure, for smart charging, then you're not legislating, but you're setting the boundaries. And it's maybe it sounds a bit the same, but it is a difference.
Yep. So it's a combination of sort of the convening power of the Commission plus maybe the financial incentives to bring that together. Peter wanted to come in.
What I said earlier, the Commission should not come with prescriptive legislation, but enabling and inspiring legislation. So if we want sectors to work together, then there needs to be some agreement on how you share data between the sectors, because we're talking about a digital ecosystem. So enabling that in every sector something starts to happen on a data sharing framework and building them together. And as I said, the case for change is there from the energy sector with the mobility sector to stimulate that and to show what the benefits are here and there. The Commission could really play a good role.
That's maybe a good moment to turn to the room. I mean, there are people on this enabling framework that have views or that would like to engage with the panel on what solutions you would have in mind. I know it's the end of the morning. I see someone at the back. Yes, please. Oh, yeah, I think you throw this, but I won't risk that because there'll be people injured.
Hi, my name is Dawn Slevin with ELS Europe. I'm just interested to know, have you looked at existing legislation and best practices? And you mentioned the word inspiring and triggered the Inspire Directive. So under existing European environmental legislation, this directive requires member states to share environmental data freely and openly. And given the crisis we're in and how important transport is, that would be considered to be obviously part of it. And it may be the case that the legislation framework and the boundaries are already set for this type of free sharing of information and data that you refer to. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not quite clear whether I understood the question, but when we talk about a data exchange framework, we definitely should get inspired by what is already out there. And exactly, for example, in the Netherlands, it's already inspired by the financial sector. But we really should get inspired what is already there. But I'm not sure whether I'm addressing your question. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know about that. But what is the most urgent situation here in smart charging of electric vehicles is that, okay, you need to share the data and you need to comply to Inspire. But what we need to be able to change charging behavior at the moment that it's needed is real-time communication through all the different operators in the chain. And then it's not just suitable to say you have to share your data, because then you leave it open to the market at what time interval you're communicating your data. We can be lagging behind, and if you're lagging behind like 1 hour, you're already in trouble, because the biggest issue in charging electric vehicles is the peak moments of the day. So we need the standardization of communication so that all parties know what to expect at what moment in time, in what format, so that they can respond to what they get instantaneously, and together we can then charge vehicles at the most convenient time, at the most convenient price, with the most durable energy, whatever the charge point operator that the consumer has a contract with decides to put their money on. That's not up to us as Ayla Tanel or as grid companies, that's up to the customer, but at least we have to be able to get all the decisions and all the output in the same format from all the chargers in Europe.
But maybe to add to what Mariska says, I think we are further in the road as we think, because I see these developments in the mobility sector, but I see also what is happening in the energy sector, where every country everywhere is people building flexibility platforms, from the grid operator for mitigating congestion, going to intraday markets to request bids for lowering the load if there's congestion. So if today the charging service providers are already well connected to their balance response particles, where the energy is optimized from, then it's just a matter of bringing the puzzle pieces together. It is not a significant challenge anymore to get that benefit. It's just to make the connection.
It's maybe a good moment also to interject another work stream that is going on in the new EU, which is about common data spaces. I mean, we've had various conversations on this precisely to bring this together in a common data space, and then what does this mean? But Herman, that is the heart of your business, as you were saying. You know, you cover the whole area. I mean, what else needs to be done? You heard about the Inspire Directive. I heard about the word of enabling as a word as compared to compliance, which is a different thing. No, the compliance is with an obligation. Enabling is allowing people. How do you see that debate ongoing in the EU, Herman?
Well, what I see is that, as I explained before, we are working together with different customers on how to help them to participate in either in their industrial data platform in this common data space, or also to participate in a third-party industrial data platform or common with other stakeholders that they have business. Basically, what we have seen is that at the end is that each of the stakeholders, they need to define which are the data or the services that they want to share. And at the end of the day, these common data spaces are a kind of sandboxes with the other participants, or you cannot work alone in this networked ecosystem. So in these sandboxes, we are not only trying to help them in order to manage the data sovereignty of the access control to my data, we are as well working together in setting up data usage control policies. And in this data usage control is how the data can be used or how this data can be deleted. It's not to control who access to my data, it's how it can be used. Basically, these are the next step that we are working together within this industrial data platforms approach together with our customers in order to help them how to push or retrieve data from this industrial platform or how they can be used inside a regulatory or contractual business.
What I picked up, Herman, is you talked about what they want to share and how they can to share. And Ekeline, but I think the culture is often let's not share, because if I sit on the data, I actually get more value out of it myself. How are you in that positioned in that debate? Because that's the heart also of your business, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very difficult because companies don't want to share their data, and most of the company in logistics, they do not have data to share because they are not really digitalized as such. If you look for a small transporter or a small logistic company, in order to share data, they need to have it on informatic way, which is not usually, or which could not be the case. So how to overcome this issue? We open in our platform a possibility to fill the data manually, because at first stage this was what was feasible. So when they get in confidence, they open the possibility to share data step by step. But it's a long process. It's not because company consider, even if they do not have a lot of data, and logistics company do not operate through their, how they collect data and they are operating the flows of third parties. So it's a very sensitive question to share the data of the clients. What they are sharing is their own data, which is a summary data of operations and also availabilities and so on. But it does not allow a company like us to go deeper into the data analysis and also to make work the algorithms, because we do not have a whole vision. So the problem today is to go through the different steps, but also to build a global vision in order to make the optimization.
But why would they give it to you?
Why do they
Why
give
would
it
the
to me?
company? I know you want it because you can make money out of it.
Because they want to sell through our. Because they want to sell. It's the only reason is that we are opening them. It's not the only one, but there are two main reasons. The first one is that we open them another sales channel, so they could get in touch with different customers and enlarge their challenging area. And the other point is that today all the logistics operator and transport operators, they are working on standalone basis. So even in the big companies, the different warehouses or the different transport groups, they are working on standalone basis. They are not sharing in between each other. They do not have a system that is transversal. So what we are building with them is an interoperable network that allow themselves to work together, because they are not connected. Then even in the same company, in between different actors, they don't want to share each other the data, because they don't want that their colleague knows what are their KPIs. So
it's a culture thing, Peter.
It's a culture issue.
I would like to comment and to add to you, because in the industry I am as DSO, that's quite different. We are regulated, so we don't have a commercial objective, and we want to share as much as data as possible, because we, next to running the grids, we also have to facilitate or enable the market. There are two factors which are holding us back. One is if we share too much data in a way that we are not GDPR compliant, then we immediately get a privacy issue. We have today fierce debates that suppliers say, give us the data and we make sure that the customer has consent. But the regulator says, the privacy regulator says, well, if we find out that was not correct, that he didn't have the consent, then you as the grid operator has also a problem, because you didn't validate it. So the first thing is, as I said, we want to bring as much as possible data to the market within the boundaries of GDPR. Then second one is, and that is a little bit the change in the industry between the incumbent market parties and the new market parties. Hey, but if we bring more data to the market, then people say, well, hey, but then competitors are coming on in the scene, and maybe we don't like them. We have discussions with traditional suppliers that, well, get me the data for what the usage data, energy usage data of the customers per year, and we provide them that it was in the legal boundary. And then we have discussion. Suppose Google comes and says, well, we collected via some kind of media the consent, and we immediately ask now for 8 million of these things every week. Then we can make propositions which the incumbents can't, and therefore the incumbent energy parties in the market say, well, push back a little bit. Don't be too much data given. Okay. And that's where I think have to make a first step, because we have to address a level playing field. That is our role.
Are there other questions? Otherwise, I can ask the colleagues as well to put a Slido question up if there's a good question. I see 3 hands up. We did the back before, so I come back to the back later. Maybe we actually take the 3 questions and see whether we can relate them. Yes.
Maybe another question, but a comment. Yeah, I'm from Poznań Supercomputing and Networking Center, and we collaborated with City of Poznań on opening the platform for accessing the data for cities and companies and all the others which are interested in exploring what's going on in the city, what is the transportation. And the model we have is preparing the APR for data and application developers to let them access the open data platform. On the basis they will deliver their data to that platform to share by others. So it means like we have some sharing approach for this, and the company like the car sharing companies or bike or other companies are really happy to get the information. What are the events in the city, what's going on, what are the transportation models for the citizens, what are the trends. But what is needed for that, it's the smart processing technology which we provide with the platform itself. So we can extract the information for those companies, not only share the data. So this is one thing. And another thing is, if we consider the privacy in GDPR, I think we have to split the approach and focus on identity management platforms and the tools which, or the technology which will allow people who agree to share the data about them, to know who is using those data and what, and for what reason. And this is about the identity management and the traceability of the data sharing for individuals and the companies. Okay,
thank you for sharing that. I think we should stay in the same row and then go to the back.
Hi, this is Panos Argyrakis from GRNet. A very naive approach would be to these questions that you said, why don't we give incentives to these people to use the data? The framework already exists for several of the ideas that you proposed. FAIR, F-A-I-R, is a framework in the Commission now that if every one of us follows, findable, accessible, interoperable, reproducible. So there is a common ground that we can all follow and be consistent, so the platform doesn't change and the codes don't change, and it is possible to do. Regarding the GDPR, it's easy to anonymize and produce the data without keeping any personal information. So all of these are all processes that can be cured. The question is now, why don't we give incentives from the single driver, a person who drives his personal car, all the way to a large logistics company that has millions of data of different drivers? Why don't we give them some incentives that the data can be used? We are in the era of big data, and now comes the time, in the last decade, that huge amount of data and information can be utilized in a smart way.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. The fair idea. At the back, Rolf, and then I ask you to come back to that, but I want to take the 3 questions that were there.
Hi, Luca Rister. I'm a data and digital architect.
Talk us a little bit more in the microphone.
Luca Rister,
yeah.
You hear me? I'm Luca Rister, a data and digital architect. I work for a consultancy company. I have a question about blockchain. Are you guys considering blockchain as a fundamental technology for data, secure data, and transparent data exchange? There are some programs that I heard of, but I don't know how far away or how advanced they are at the moment. So
I think a good set of questions.
Question for Peter and
yeah. Yeah, I'll give all them an opportunity to react on some of the comments that were made. I think you wanted to go first, Mariska.
Yes, but I wanted to say something about I want to say something about the blockchain as well. because we have been experimenting with blockchain communication in chargers. But actually, we're already at a stage that we have the interoperable chargers that no matter what company you are registered with as an EV driver, you can always charge your vehicle at any charger in the country, and they all manage the financial transactions in the back office. So you don't have to use 20 cards to charge your car. It's all already arranged. So we have an IOTA charger, which is IOTA is a blockchain technology, but at Ayla we are not doing any research anymore on that because we think we have already solved that problem. And with respect to the incentives for drivers and all the way up to the rest of the chain, that is a very valid question. Only what a barrier is that it is not clear yet who is paying the incentives. So where is the money coming from? If you look from a DSO perspective, it's very tricky to pay out incentives to particular drivers because we are bound by non-discriminatory laws. We're not supposed to be paying drivers for helping the grid. If we do that, you would get into a situation where the poor get poorer and the rich get richer because it's the rich people who own a means of flexibility and they get an incentive from the DSO. Well, you can imagine that you get a large political debate about that. But still, there is a huge potential in all those batteries that are stationed somewhere in the country. They're stationed for 95% of the time, so you can make use of those battery capacity. But we have to find out who pays for it, in what way. And one way would be that a DSO could perhaps pay a charge point operator or a shared car company to offer flexibility through a flex market, and then it doesn't go to drivers individually, but it goes not directly anyhow. But it is a challenge that we're looking into.
Anyone else wants to come in on that? Herman?
Okay, on the question on blockchain, I agree with Mariska. Basically, blockchain doesn't fit in all the use cases, all the business cases. It should go case by case to check if it fits the blockchain technology or not, to address not the data sharing or data exchange, as well to look if it works for some kind of traceability of the information when we are talking about the centralized data exchange between different stakeholders. So we have been looking as well in different business cases where blockchain can fit or is feasible, or others that doesn't. So it's not the unique solution. I think that probably from more harmonized or general data exchange probably in transport and logistics or energy is more to focus on open specifications, on open APIs that everyone can follow. And that's it, basically.
Very good. And on this question about the FAIR principle, Peter, to you?
Yeah, on the FAIR principle, I think you're absolutely right. But when I take it then the discussion one level lower, more practical, and actually we are in the middle of that in the discussion with the Ministry of Economic Affairs on what needs to be going into the next national law. Now the electricity directives comes on. As long as it's not written there and the way how it's implemented, the FAIR principles will not come into execution. For me, I see those principles as good ones, as overarching principles, but as long as they are not sufficiently substantiated by some legislation, it means that hey, it means then this should be happening and that is not allowed, then it won't work. That's my view.
A lot of the conversation was about what should be done and how things should be changed, and now there's a lot of policy conversations or platforms or stakeholders meetings that we have. But I want to ask you, what sort of research would we need to actually get where we want to get? Because we're sitting here also with talking about research programs. Is it technological research? Is it societal research? What do we really need?
Yeah. As a Knowledge Institute, we are currently in a lot of Horizon 2020 projects, And the most important thing now is to explore all the possible solutions, combining technology and consumer acceptation. And I think we have some things on the way that do that. For instance, with flexibility markets, where we are trying throughout Europe to find out how to operate a flexibility market, how to prioritize different flex offers and flex requests, and how to monetize that as well in combination with the cost of running it. We're also doing experiments on different types of battery to compare all those different solutions. Like you've got the normal big huge battery, you've got environmental friendly batteries, you've got batteries on wheels, we also call them cars. And that is also what we're doing, the interoperable protocols to check if it's working, if it's predictable, if it's reliable for everybody, the customer, the grid operator, the electricity provider, etc. And what we are now trying to look into is also a way of involving the consumer by offering flexible tariffs to see what will happen if we allow the consumer to make their own decisions. If it is working or not, that is something that we would like to dive into, and that would be helpful if the Commission would have a program on that.
Other views on this? What we need? Peter?
I normally say that the energy system of the future will not be built out of the silos of the past. And that is what I strongly see. And then I see silos in sectors, but I see all silos in technologies, market development and regulation. So we really have to cross those silos to make the next step. I think there could be a big opportunity for research to enable to cross those silos. And that goes beyond the technological part. It is about finding the stakeholders in different sectors. Also finding the use cases and building the business case, bringing those people together from those sectors. So enable as a broker to get that change going on. And then of course at the end we need standard protocols and formats and technology. But that is then for me step 4. So research could enable to get that change process going on.
Anyone else who wants to? Yes, over there and here. So first take it there. Yeah, I make Rolf move a bit so that he does his morning gym.
I'm Fernando Liesa, Secretary General of ALICE, the technology platform on logistics. I'm very happy to be here on the discussion. From our side, what we think is that sometimes in the projects we are looking very much on the state of the art, from the scientific point of view, but sometimes we miss a little bit the market state of the art, because as Nicolina said, the reality is that many of the companies need to go on digitalization, but they don't have the capability to reach the state of the art and then doing the business. So for me, sometimes it would be better to focus a little bit on how to break the current state of the market and support all those companies to really progress faster. And I think on this, in the past, DG Connect used to have a focus on the sectors before Horizon 2020, and now I think this is a little bit that we are looking into the technologies, how they are progressing, but this is getting even more bigger, the gap between the technologies and what is feasible. This is one point. The second point is that we see our companies are looking into digitalization. They are moving forward, but then there are a number of initiatives like the Digital Transport and Logistics Forum for DG Move, the single window in maritime, CITS, but also the customs, DigiTrade, and also DG Connect. And we would really, as platform, we are trying to integrate all these developments and efforts from the Commission towards our stakeholders, but for us it's quite complex. So maybe it's also looking into how we could break out the silos to move a little bit, because at the end the issues are similar from one point to the other. So that's the two sense.
Yep. Over here.
Yes, hello. My name is Véronique Stéphan. I'm working for Nantes City. And today we received the prize of European Capital of Innovation. So we are very proud to be here. And we have our candidature was focused on citizen, you know. So my question is, don't you think that the cities have also a role to play actually to address your question? For example, to test, to experiment this technical solution, but to do all this technical solution with the people and for the people, so to be user-oriented. Also about data, blockchain, etc. It can solve also a lot of issues we face to protect the personal data. This is my question. How can the city be implicated?
And also the question on the compartmental, I know it was addressed to the Commission, but we normally deflect these questions to the others, but the point well taken. Go ahead.
Well, we at Ayla we do a lot of projects with actual customers. We prefer not to do experiments with laboratory setup, although we do have our testing laboratory that I mentioned. But like in the Invade project, which is nearing completion this year, we've got over 1,000 chargers with up till now 116,000 charging sessions been taking place by regular customers. And we are looking into the acceptance of these customers of the smart charging that we have now basically restricted them to. So we did not do any flex market or at all, but we are trying to find out first on the statistics part and then on the user experience part, what is the effect of our involvement in this part of smart charging. And also in another project which was more small scale, we actually recruited just normal everyday citizens in Amsterdam, which is not the most difficult, not the most easy city to do an experiment in, excuse me. So real Amsterdam citizens who are known to be very straightforward.
That's the Dutch from Amsterdam, yeah. Not the...
If they don't like something, then they will tell you. So that was an interesting test case also. And there we tested vehicle to grid, which is a real novel thing where we use the battery to feed back energy into the grid. And there actually we found that with this small group, people actually were rather proud that their car could do such a clever thing, and that they even got a reward. They were never expecting to get a reward for plugging in their car. So that gives us some energy to go further in this type of experience, because sometimes as a technology-driven party, you tend to think for the customer instead of ask the customer what they actually accept and what they actually expect from the technology. So that is what we're trying to include in all our experiments.
Nicolina, cities can often be a help and they can be a hinder in new innovations. No, there's platforms. So how do you see that interaction with cities and citizens?
Let's say that there will be more interaction in the city last mile logistics. So probably allowing different and enhancing the legislation in order to have more pure vehicles, like electric one, and to share information about where could be the relevant point to make deliveries and how it could be organized, because last mile logistics is very difficult. At first it requires hubs that are not really available in the cities, so this is something that needs to be organized. And I think that this is the main role that you could have in logistics, because otherwise everything is happening out of the cities today. Big platforms are next to villages and so on, so it's not the same thing, but you have a key role into the urban logistics.
Peter?
Yeah, I think what you say is the cities should really have, and have already today, an important role in this. I don't know how it in the other countries is, but the national climate objective, which was signed off in Paris a few years ago, actually the national government transferred them to the cities. So in the Netherlands, every city has to make a plan within 2 years now how per area we should bring down CO2 and how we actually should get off the gas. So the cities have a big issue there, and what I personally see is that we really have to work together with them because actually they lack the knowledge. They really lack the knowledge on that. Then also on the consumers, as I said, in the ongoing discussions on the new energy law in the Netherlands, we had also discussions with the consumer association because they represent the end consumer. And what I also see there is, they also struggling. We have to do something with this climate thing and how to engage and empower the customer. But they are not so deep in knowledge as we are. So it's a knowledge lack. So therefore, I think it's really, again, building coalition across sectors. The first step is then to bring everybody to the same information knowledge, and then the inspiration by what can we do will come from that as a next step. It will come by itself. But the lack of knowledge, which I see, is today hindering us in getting effective next steps.
I'm just going to check with the colleagues whether through Slido we got questions or not. That we could maybe still ask the panel in the last couple of minutes that we have. Looks not.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Then I take the question here at the back.
Just waiting for the queue.
Yes.
Yeah, Alexander from Bauhaus Luftfahrt, and I have some questions and a remark. A little bit going back to the discussion that we had earlier, and also to this question that you had, what could you, the European Commission or the new research program provide as a ground for having innovative research? So one of the things that I want to put into the discussion is that you said you don't want legislation to force you to use the FAIR principle and data sharing, etc. But what would happen if this would be forced by the research program? So it would be more forced there that whatever you have as an innovative solution must be delivered on this kind of platform. So at least you show that the innovative impulse is already tied to this free platform. The other thing is that I really hope for the topics that arise, and we didn't really discuss the next big topics, but more the small changes on the way, that they are really technology agnostic and look for the solutions and not how to apply some technology that may be currently hyped like blockchain. So thanks.
Anyone want to comment on that? A question? No?
I would like to comment because actually, to be honest, I'm not a research person. So what I'm doing business, and I don't care and I don't mind how it could be implemented. But having an open data, it's really a progress for the company, because the option is the following. Either you have a foreign competitor that is coming and that is imposing the rules, and everybody is going to communicate on one way his data, because it's, we will not change each and every time the way that we communicate the data. So the first one that is coming will get and will set the rules. Either we set up the rules, so we install a fair competition in between the different companies that are acting into the space. I mean, not only in logistics, but also in energy and so on. And so here you have a real added value for the customer, because the company will not fight of how many data do they collect, from which are their partners, and how they know that, how they constitute the data behind their algorithms and so on. Because in logistics, there is no, in my standpoint, there is no technological issue. The issue is the data that you put behind your algorithms in order to make them work. If the data is relevant, your algorithm will be perfect and you will go further into the market. So I don't know what is for the other companies, but for my company, we don't care if it will be a legislation or it will be a research center that will say, listen, make your data on this way, so we could all exchange together, and then we roll up the planning. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doing the innovative research,
Uh,
you must show it already in an open environment that when you put it to business, then you already have also...
I will come to that final question, but Nicolina said she's not so much in the horizon itself, so that's maybe not. But very quickly, I want to address this international dimension, because as you know, the Commissioner von der Leyen, President-elect, has said that we will be a geopolitical commission. And how do you see that in other countries? Because they don't have the Inspire directive, or they don't have any of the formats that we have. Is it very different, this debate, if you go to the US or to Indonesia or to Saudi Arabia? Or is it a similar debate? And then I come to a final question on the research program.
I think in Europe we're front runners at this type of data exchange. If you look into other countries, they're still struggling to find the communication protocols, for instance, and so I think that the rest of the world could take an example of what we have achieved here. I'm not saying that we achieved everything, because we still need to make it communicate even more perfect, more tailor-made. Like I said when I started, that we don't want to interfere with the driver, but we want to know as much as we possibly can. But in other countries, you still need those 20 cards to drive around the country, and we've solved that problem. Or you still need different plugs for charging your car if you cross the border. We have solved that problem. Yep. So I think we standardized quite a lot.
And for a company like Atos, inherently global, how do you see that?
I see that usually what we do is we bring the European innovation to the rest of the countries across the world. So basically, we find that even each country, they have their own legislation or their own regulation. Sometimes they have the business, they have the similar challenge. And the type of solutions that we can apply from the innovation that we develop here in Europe can be applied there. And this is what I mentioned before, like the concept of mobility as a service, or other type of technologies that can be developed from or have been researched here in Europe and are applied. So I don't foresee that problem. The unique problem that we foresee is that sometimes in some countries there are other companies that they have a very big or dominant position, and they have this big share of the market or the value, and the rest of the companies, they have to follow them. So,
very good. Yeah.
But I think that the European, they were more neutral.
Very briefly, and then I want to have a closing question.
On how Europe stands with the rest of the world, I think the debate on data sharing and data access, as we have it in Europe, is quite different, and in that respect a little bit more advanced even as in the US. Because what you see is that it's also about platforms, and you get the discussion on the big new monopolies around the big tech platforms, and you see that evolving in US, and I see in Europe now the discussion: hey, is that where we want to go forward? Because it's not maximizing welfare for everybody; it's only maximizing welfare for the platform companies. And in that respect, if we follow that route, then we are definitely ahead of the rest.
That's always good to hear. That's a nice positive.
But then we should do something. Then we should do something.
Well, that is my final question. Rolf, I assume that the colleagues will be invited in 7 years' time for the same panel, and then I will ask you the question. The Horizon Europe program was the most fantastic program that the European Union could ever invent because. So. Peter, I know you have some idea on this.
Yeah, we discussed this morning. As you said, we can't reorganize the structure of the program as today. But then it is a success because within the existing structure, your future calls will address consortia which are built up from different sectors.
Very good one.
It was a success because from all the different European parties involved, with all their different states of the art with respect to innovation, energy, digitalisation, we got all those interests combined in the open protocols that we now use to run our countries.
Herman.
We will demonstrate business value through innovative business cases across the different domains.
Nicolina.
Now, for me, it's very business oriented and cross-sector and international, which is opening the state of mind and the collaboration in between the different participants into the program.
Okay, well, we need all of you to get where the panel wants to go in 7 years' time. So we have our work cut out for ourselves. I would like to ask you maybe to give a round of applause to the panelists for their contribution. And I would also like to thank you for your attendance and for your participation, and enjoy the rest of the Research and Innovation Days. Thank you very much.